Just want to welcome everybody to South Carolina Management Tech's BYO Lunch and Learn. This is a monthly series where we reach out to the community, the ecosystem, and bring in a special guest and reach back into our ecosystem and try to put all this together. This is sponsored by South Carolina Emerging Tech and South Carolina Blockchain, Bitcoin Blockchain Conference, October 10th through 13th. I want to ask you to mark your calendars and plan to attend. Without any further chit chat on my side, I want to introduce our speaker today, Trey Sellers. Trey is with Unchained Capital and is here to give us a presentation on how to keep your Bitcoin safe as an inheritance and transferring. I mean, we have a durable asset, an intangible asset, that passes from, can be passed from generation to generation, and a little bit different in that this is all, there's different custodial aspects of that. And I'll ask Trey to go ahead and give us a little brief background on Unchained and himself, and let's work right into the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate you having me. I'm really excited to be here. So I am head of client solutions at Unchained. I'll get into a little bit about what we do, but the very high level view here is that we help people hold their own Bitcoin. We do that in a way that eliminates any counterparty risk that you might have. So you have full control over the Bitcoin and there's no single point of failure. You've got fault tolerance built in. And the way that we approach this using something called multi-signature, which is built into Bitcoin, it allows you to set yourself up for that inheritance planning scenario in a really robust and really good way. And so I'll go into, the details of exactly what that looks like and how that works. Just a quick disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a tax advisor. So please don't take any of this as financial or tax advice. Have to throw that out there. But happy to answer your questions after we kind of get through a little bit of a presentation, and we can take the conversation wherever y'all would like to, whether that be inheritance or what Unchained does or Bitcoin, just generally speaking. So Dennis, let me just share my screen here and we can.
Yeah, Doug, if you've got the controls. There we go.
All right. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Very good. Okay. Inheritance planning with Bitcoin. So probably don't need to go over too much of this, what is Bitcoin, but for anybody who's new to Bitcoin, who's learning about it, just a really quick definition of the way that I like to think about this, which is that Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a set of rules that people can opt into. And when they opt into it, it forms a network of individuals that communicate to one another and create a monetary system that allows you to transfer and store economic value across time and space. And one of the key features of that is that there's an absolutely fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoin that can never be changed. And when you own Bitcoin and you're holding it as a generational asset, the way that a lot of Bitcoiners think about this, you need to be thinking about how you pass that on. So why do people hold Bitcoin? Again, for anybody who's new and trying to understand the value proposition here, here are a few of some of the main reasons. Asymmetric upside. People believe that there'll continue to be rapid adoption of Bitcoin as global money, and that its value will rise exponentially because we are dealing with a hard cap of 21 million Bitcoin, and there's a virtually unlimited amount of capital out there that could flow into Bitcoin over time. And then Bitcoin offers protection against a few things that we're seeing a lot of these days, which is debasement and inflation, financial censorship, counterparty risk. So why will adoption continue? It's just better money. We can talk about, what makes it better money, in maybe the Q&A and that kind of thing, but it's just better money. And as people realize that, they want to adopt it. And as they adopt it, the price really can only go up over time because of that fixed supply of 21 million. So just digging in a little bit, what does asymmetric upside kind of look like? Well, Bitcoin is kind of positioning itself right now as a new global store of value. And people use a lot of other assets, real estate, gold, cash, stocks, bonds, art, cars, watches, all of that as store value assets. And Bitcoin stands to take a large chunk of that. Again, with that fixed supply of 21 million, as that capital flows toward this better way of holding your value because of the properties that it holds, it can start to eat away at that large chunk of capital that's being used in or stored in inferior store value assets like real estate or like stocks. Debasement and inflation. We've seen a lot of this over the last couple of years. The money supply has grown very rapidly over the last couple of years in response to the COVID shutdown. And Bitcoin prevents that from having this set supply schedule and fixed supply of 21 million. You can kind of opt out of inflation. Inflation doesn't really exist in Bitcoin. By adopting it, you are choosing a money that cannot be debased from underneath of you because nobody is in charge of actually being able to print that. Financial censorship. Feel however you feel about the Canadian truckers and what they were trying to do and the statement that they were trying to make. But Bitcoin worked for them. It worked for them very well. And it was a good protection against people's bank accounts being summarily executed by those who control them. A lot of people look at Bitcoin as a way to truly own their wealth so that they cannot actually be censored. That can only be achieved by holding your own keys, which we'll get a little bit more into, which is a very important part of this equation. But this is another reason that people look to Bitcoin and why they own it. And then counterparty risk, very, very fresh here, Silicon Valley Bank. If you are trusting somebody else with your money, you have counterparty risk to them. You're exposed to their solvency or risk of insolvency, and you have to, be in a position of asking for permission to be able to access your money. They may not have your money, and Bitcoin secured by your own keys is a way to protect against that. Because you don't have to ask anybody's permission and you don't have a counterparty. There's no liability to you for the ownership of that asset and the control over that asset. So a lot of people look at this as, hey, I can truly own my wealth in something that does not have any counterparty risk and that I don't have to trust a third party. Okay, so now we start to transition into how this works for inheritance. So in Bitcoin, possession is 10/10 of the law. And I've got a couple of asterisks there. We're not talking about the actual law, the law that is kind of passed down from governments. Bitcoin's law is defined by the protocol, that set of rules that we're talking about. And so, Bitcoin is a digital bearer asset. It's controlled by private keys, which is really just secret information. And without those private keys, Bitcoin cannot be transferred. If the private keys are lost or stolen, so is the Bitcoin. So possession of those private keys and making sure that you're taking really good care of them is extremely important when you're thinking about how you pass Bitcoin down from yourself to the generation next to you, right? When you want to pass on this wealth to the next generation, you need to make sure that they actually have access to those private keys so that they can take control of it. Estate and inheritance planning with Bitcoin is really about two sides of the same coin. One side is about title. This is something that you'll work with an estate planner and an estate attorney on to make sure that you can actually, that your family member that you intend to have accepting that Bitcoin actually has legal title to it. And the other side of that is the transfer of possession. Do you actually have the scenario plan for where your family needs to inherit that wealth and they actually can get a hold of those private keys? So these are the two main questions that we need to answer and be set up for when we're thinking about inheritance planning with Bitcoin. So on that title side of things, you want to make sure that you consult with an attorney to legally establish a will or a trust. There are, different trade-offs and different considerations as to whether or not a will or a trust is appropriate for you. I'll go into a little bit of the advantages here on the next slide for a trust. But what these documents do is they function to properly pass title to your Bitcoin, to your beneficiaries. It establishes that legal ability for somebody to actually inherit the title to that Bitcoin. And it also establishes who will manage the transfer of that estate, who is the executor of your estate that will actually manage that process of making sure that your assets, whether they be Bitcoin or any other assets that you own, transfer to the appropriate people in accordance with your estate plan. And then one other note there at the bottom is that in the US, Bitcoin is treated as property for tax purposes. A lot of estate planning has strong consideration for the tax treatment of those assets whenever they need to be passed down. And so that's something that you'll want to make sure that you are consulting with your estate attorney on as well. Just quickly diving into a trust. What are the benefits of a living trust? A living trust is a structure that you can set up that enables you to avoid probate. So, when you pass, if you don't have a will, or if you do have a will, it will need to go through a probate process to ensure that the title is passed in accordance with that will, and that consists of a court process. And this can vary from state to state. So as you're talking to your estate attorney, you're going to want to make sure that they're familiar with the laws or licensed in your state. In this case, maybe it's South Carolina, right? But they may also suggest that you want to set up a living trust. A trust has certain advantages. In probate, when the title of that property is being passed on, that's a public process. And so by establishing a trust, you can actually avoid putting sensitive information into the public record about those assets and the beneficiaries of those assets. So for instance, with Bitcoin, your family who are receiving title to that Bitcoin, that would be public record if it goes through probate. And so the names, the addresses of those people, how much or what that Bitcoin is worth would all be part of the public record. So you may want to avoid that. And one way to do that is by establishing a trust. You also have immediate access to, or your family members have immediate access to the Bitcoin and to the other property that you've got within that trust. You don't need to go through this court process. It's a much smoother process, because the trustees have access without the need to apply to any probate court office or court there. And then going through probate can also be very expensive. There are certain states that are much more arduous, have much more of an arduous probate process than others. California is one example of that. And then on the other end of the spectrum is New Jersey, right? But the probate process kind of falls in between those for most other states. And that is a very time consuming and potentially very costly process to go through, the court process to make sure that that title is actually transferring in the direction that it needs to go. Keep moving. Okay, so Unchained. Unchained provides financial services for Bitcoin. And we do that in a number of different ways, but really, our vision here is that we're building for a Bitcoin world. We truly believe that Bitcoin is, coming into its own as a global store of value and global money. And so we want to enable individuals and organizations to secure their Bitcoin for the long term. And then we provide some other financial services that are layered on top of that core custody solution that we provide for our clients. And that really allows them to maximize the value of the Bitcoin holdings that they've got. Not your keys, not your Bitcoin. You've probably heard this phrase. We we take this security first principle as foundational for all of the products and services that we provide. You want to make sure that you're eliminating counterparty risk by holding the private keys to your Bitcoin, and by doing it in the way that we offer, which I'll get into here in a second. You're able to plan for that possession side of the equation when you do need to pass on your Bitcoin, and this solution offers a really good way to do that. What does that look like? What we offer is something called collaborative custody. We are using, as I said, multi-signature functionality. This is functionality that's built into Bitcoin. It's part of the protocol. It's not something that we created. We're just leveraging that functionality as part of our platform, as part of our service, to ensure that our clients have complete control over the Bitcoin that they own. But they don't have any single point of failure. There's fault tolerance built in. They can't just make one mistake and lose access to the Bitcoin. And we are in a position where we can help them if something happens to one of the private keys that they are controlling. So the way that this works is it's called a 2 of 3 multi-signature vault. Our clients hold 2 out of the 3 keys that are used to protect that Bitcoin. And any 2 out of the 3 are needed to sign a transaction to move Bitcoin out of the vault once it goes in there. With our clients holding 2, they have full unilateral control over the Bitcoin. And we have that 3rd key, which puts us in a position, as I said, to help our clients to recover from any issues or misplacement of one of those keys. It also puts us in a position to help their family if something happens to them. So we can assist in that inheritance planning scenario where your family needs to take control over the Bitcoin in accordance with your estate plan. So we want our clients to secure their Bitcoin for generations. Bitcoin is a multi-generational asset. And so what we've done is developed something we call the Unchained Inheritance Protocol. It works alongside of our vaults to set up our clients with everything they need to make sure their families can take possession of the Bitcoin at their death and in accordance with their estate plan. We also give some guidelines on some of the questions that you should be asking when you're talking to an estate attorney, to make sure that you are actually covered for any of the scenarios that you might need to be taking their advice, of course, right? We are not in the business of creating that estate plan for you, but we want to help you be able to approach that problem and solving that problem in an informed way. Because the reality is that a lot of estate attorneys out there are not yet familiar with Bitcoin. They will be over time, but we want to make sure that we arm our clients with some good information and some good questions to be asking so that they can help their estate attorney to cover all their bases there. So what does that look like? Essentially, it's this. It's a package that we send our clients as part of their onboarding process that provides step-by-step checklists for how you should be conducting these activities and what you need to be doing. A couple of letters that go with your executor or your trustee, a tamper evident bag, and an inheritance seed phrase card where you'll take a copy of one of the backups for those keys and put it in there in that tamper evident bag, along with a letter that really sets that trustee or that executor up with everything they need to come contact us if something were to happen to you. They've got one key and they can use that key to work with us and our key. And then they've got a list of the documents that they need to be providing to, prove who they are and that they do have legal title to inherit that Bitcoin. And then we are in a position to actually help that process. So, when our clients come on board with us, we send them that package. We help them make sure that they're thinking through how to set up this inheritance planning protocol and get them to a point where they're really comfortable and confident with the way all of this works.
Trey, we're just before 1.
Yes,
We've
sir.
got about 5 minutes, and I know you've got more slides to go through, and I think we all are engaged here.
Sure.
But I do want to just, just in case somebody has to get off, we have one question from Eric, who's asking, who do you recommend as a good third person for the two or of three multi-sig signatures?
Yeah, great question. So the way that, if you're an individual, the way that the majority of our clients handle their keys is that they have access to them in two different locations, right? So you're not necessarily trusting somebody else with one of those keys. You could opt to do that. But the way that it normally works is that our clients hold a key in their home, in maybe a safe or a lockbox of some kind. That second key is held in a different location. Could be an office location, could be where they're able to lock it up, could be a trusted family member or friend in their house and their safe, could be a second home, like a vacation home or something like that, could be a bank in a safety deposit box. So as part of our onboarding process, we help to advise our clients based on their personal situation, to help them think through exactly what that might look like for them, but that's most of the time how that's working. Now you do have a backup that goes on that inheritance seed phrase card, that goes in that inheritance protocol package that might be secured with another person. So that gives you another point of resiliency, and another point of redundancy with a trustee or with maybe an estate attorney or an executor or another family member, somebody else who is actually being entrusted to help your family take control of that Bitcoin in the event of your death.
And that, of course, could also be, the estate attorney as an impartial third party.
It could be. One of the really great advantages of using multi-signature in this way is that you can give an estate attorney, somebody that is not a family member that you don't really necessarily want to trust, you can give them a copy of a seed phrase, which is a backup to one of your keys. And that person then can work with us. We talked about how we provide instructions for what they need to do that. But that estate attorney does not have enough information to see how much Bitcoin you own, and they don't have enough information to actually spend the Bitcoin, without your cooperation. If you were to do this in single signature mode, right, where you're just using a single key to protect the Bitcoin, if you give that to anybody else, including your estate attorney, you've got to trust that they're not going to run off with the funds. And that's just not the case with multi-sig.
We had another question. From Patrick asking a question, when you're talking about key, are you talking about do you mean the cold wallet or the seed phrase or both?
When I say key, it's referring generically to both, which I think is what you're asking. So Bitcoin private keys, if you're using cold storage, are generated and protected by a hardware wallet, or some people call this a signing device. These are devices that are specifically made for protecting private keys for Bitcoin. The private keys are generated on the device, and we back them up by writing down a series of 12 or 24 words on a piece of paper. You could stamp these into steel, and you can make copies of these, but they should never go on any kind of internet connected device. You shouldn't take a picture of them or anything like that. When I say seed phrase, and when we talk about handing a backup or a seed phrase to an attorney or to a family member, this is what I'm talking about. It's this analog version of your private key that allows you to regenerate the digital version of that private key that's stored on this device, and allows you to actually sign for a transaction when you need to move Bitcoin.
Got it. And I have just one more question, and then I'll let you move on. Do you use a third party for Vault platform? And if yes, how many partners are involved in that?
There is no third party here. Two of three multi-sig, the Vault platform is a web-based platform that we provide that coordinates transactions, coordinates the creation of this vault, and allows us to be a partner in that custody process with you. But there's no other third party. Okay. So you, as our client, hold two keys. You fully control the Bitcoin. We are in collaboration with you with our third key. And again, that puts us in a position to help you recover if something were to happen to one of those two keys. And you're not in a position where you could make a mistake and lose the Bitcoin. And we're there to support you as you come on board and on into the future as well, when you have questions or when you need some other type of support from us.
Sounds good. Well, let's move on. We've got, we're 1 minute over time.
Yes, sir. Dennis, how would you like to go? Would you like me to continue here?
Oh, yeah, no,
I got a little
yeah,
extra time,
yeah.
so I'm happy to take more questions and continue on here.
Yeah, no, that's my point. I wanted to, just kind of hit that before at the top of the hour, so if anybody had to peel off, and then obviously I know you have some more slides, so let's continue, and then we can wrap up with some more questions.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I just want to give a quick overview of the other financial services that we provide. So as I mentioned, the core relationship that we have with our clients most of the time is around this custody process, and making sure that you have the best possible security for your Bitcoin, and that you are set up for inheritance to make sure that your family can take control of that Bitcoin. But then we layer on these other financial services that are built along similar foundations, with private key management, kind of at the core there. So our clients can buy and sell Bitcoin directly with us. This is really great, so that you don't have to have yet another counterparty that you're dealing with. You don't have to buy Bitcoin on an exchange and then manually withdraw it. You just trade directly with us, and we drop that Bitcoin right into your vault, directly into cold storage, multi-sig, where you control the keys. We also have a Bitcoin IRA. A lot of people find us through this IRA product. A lot of people have money that is in a 401k or an IRA at Fidelity or TD Ameritrade or Charles Schwab or something like that, and they want to get Bitcoin exposure. Well, we offer that. You can roll that IRA or that 401k into a Bitcoin IRA, and you can actually hold your own keys to the Bitcoin there. And then we also provide Bitcoin-backed loans. So a lot of our clients are seeking liquidity. They want to be able to, kind of access the value of the Bitcoin that they're holding without having to sell it. And so you can use your Bitcoin as collateral for a Bitcoin-backed loan, and be able to access that dollar liquidity whenever you need to. We'll be adding, more financial services on into the future. We've got plans to kind of widen the bridge between Bitcoin and dollars and the fiat financial world. So there'll be a lot more to come in terms of announcements on the financial services that we're able to offer. What else do I have? Okay. Just a little bit, I'll leave this up here as additional resources for a few minutes if y'all want to scan those, but these are either on our blog or on our YouTube channel. We've got a couple of articles, how to set up a Bitcoin inheritance plan. This is really going to be a bit more of a deep dive into the topics that I covered here. Estate planning on a Bitcoin standard is a recent webinar that we did that covers this with some fairly prominent estate planners in the US here. And then just a link to our Unchained inheritance protocol, so you can really understand the ins and outs of how that inheritance protocol works beyond how I've described it here. And I'll send out these links. I'll make sure that Dennis and Doug have that to share with you. That's all I've got. Happy to dig into some other questions. But yeah, thank you, Dennis. That's the end of the presentation that I had prepared.
Yeah, great stuff, Trey. Very informative. I do want to mention while we're at it, I mean, obviously, just because I've gone through this myself, over the last 12 years with elder care and estate work as my folks trustee and my wife's family as well. The simple thing, I mean, obviously will, trust, and then, for each of those, an estate planning letter is probably, an important ancillary item, that really goes into some of the details of what you might want to give and to who you might want to give, and even break it down into, if you got one Bitcoin, you can break it down to, and 10 beneficiaries. You can identify each one as what amount they may receive. So, those little details are the things that really make a difference in the long run, when you're administering a state. Scott has asked the question, when a vault is set up, is there the ability to have multiple Bitcoin accounts within that vault in order to segregate funds? Great question.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Scott. So within an account, you can create multiple vaults, and each one of those vaults is controlled by the same two keys. You could provide other keys and kind of mix and match, however you would like to do that, but you can absolutely have multiple vaults that are controlled by the same two keys and be able to segregate funds. The vaults themselves, if you're familiar with how Bitcoin wallets work, they work the exact same way, right? So, those private keys that are used to create the vault, create that wallet, there's a set of Bitcoin addresses that are derived from those private keys, from the public keys that are derived from those private keys. And so that unique set of Bitcoin addresses is what you'll be depositing into and signing transactions from to move the Bitcoin in and out of your vault. But you can create multiple vaults that are derived from those same set of keys and then be able to segregate funds. And, a lot of our clients do exactly that. You can also use the same keys across accounts. So we have a lot of clients who have Bitcoin that they own in their personal name, and they've got a personal vault there. They also have a Bitcoin IRA with us, and they've got a vault that is tied to that Bitcoin IRA account. And then they might also have a business that they are, have Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And instead of having, 6 different keys across those 3 different accounts, you want to be able to reduce the complexity that is associated with controlling and protecting that Bitcoin. And so you can use the same 2 keys across all of those accounts and all of the vaults that you have in each one of those accounts.
Great. Any other questions from, we've got a few more minutes. I want to take the opportunity to mention our sponsor, South Carolina Bitcoin Blockchain Conference. I've just posted in the chat a link to our South Carolina Blockchain 2023 store, along with a discount code for 30%, to be used against any of the packages there or the individual tickets. And we want to invite everybody, that's on the call here to sign up early. And obviously, we're very excited this year about the South Carolina Bitcoin Blockchain Conference. We see basically the convergence now of blockchain and AI as kind of the next big imminent move in this industry, and how that interfaces potentially with Bitcoin is an area that we're interested in exploring. We're talking to, I'm trying to bring in some of the best minds in the world, for this particular event, and where it's planned for October 10th through the 13th in Charleston. We're working with a new venue and hope to also include a little golf tournament at the end of that event. So mark your calendars today and join us in October for the South Carolina Bitcoin Blockchain Conference. I think that looks like, anybody else, any other questions at this point? I think looks like we're in good shape, and we are actually time-wise, doing just fine. So, Trey, I want to thank you. If nobody else is, if that concludes everybody's interest today, I want to thank you for your time, and we hope to see you in Miami next week. And will you be down there?
I'll be down there. Yeah, looking forward to it. It's going to be a great week. And, the festivities around the conference, the panels that they've got lined up, it really looks like a great week. So hopefully, maybe I'll run into somebody. Feel free to flag me down and introduce yourself, and we'll find some time to chat.
Sounds great. Look forward to it. I'm bringing the El Salvadoran whiskey, so we got to make sure we connect.
Sounds good. Yeah, looking forward to
that. Great. Well, thank you all very much. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, and look forward to the next BYO Lunch and Learn. We'll be making the announcement, for who will be involved in June. And I want to thank everybody for coming today.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Trey.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Good
Dennis.
stuff.
Thank y'all. Okay.